two examples where I think we can continue even with the story about the primordial role of money. I think one interesting matching topic is the rise of capitalism. Max Weber's theory. Max Weber's theory about the rise of capitalism is actually a theory about the emergence of particular emotional attitudes towards money. Yeah, the Protestant hypothesis is about how to deal with money. Yeah, and so I would say this is precisely a sort of proof. Yeah, that once a particular religious context, how to regulate the use of the artifact emerge, there are many unintended effects. Like in Weber's account, the rise of capitalism. This is one interesting possible extension. And the other is what I mentioned already in the beginning. We do have this field of research, the social studies on finance, which includes, for example, anthropological research about behavior of traders. And there's one researcher, Saloon, I quote her, she published a book and also a number of papers on this issue, who argues that the most important skill that the traders on financial markets must develop is how to deal with money emotions. For example, there is an explicit rule, loss aversion. Loss aversion is extremely dangerous. Yeah, I mean, if you deal with huge amounts of money, it distorts your decision making. And so there are rules that people learn when they are socialized in these habits, in these communities, how to keep calm, which means how to control money emotions. So that, from the anthropological point of view, this author, for example, just reverses the argument. It is the people are not rational by nature. They become rational because they develop certain emotional capacities. And they must be emotional because the decision making is so fast. Yeah? There's such a huge tension, which is, if you look at the psychological research, which is also a bodily experience, trading, it is dangerous. There's high levels of risk. All this means that the rationality of financial traders is in fact the outcome of a particular emotional setup that they develop. It is not the rationality in the sense of the economist. So what I want to say is, finally, in this conclusion, on the one hand, it is obvious that once money emerged, then there is an institutional evolution, and as my standard example, the central banker does not feel the drug effect of money. So he's operating or acting in an entirely different institutional setting, which is neutralized. It does not make sense to apply this theory on central banker behavior. But still, I think it is amazing that you can still make sense of even more complex institutional developments, such as maybe even the rise of capitalism, Max Weber's theory in that case, as something related to emotions and institutions in the case of money, and financial markets, even the most sophisticated ways how to deal with money might involve a lot of even primordial emotional structures, if only in the sense that the rationality that emerges is explicitly an outcome of a new way how to deal with those money emotions. Okay, I think I can stop here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Very interesting. Yeah, questions, comments?
I think I found the idea of anga very interesting, because I read a book by Professor Fujii. He's also a fellow here. He conducted experiment using two monkeys interacting with each other freely. And usually you find one monkey becomes dominant while the other monkey is subject to the dominant one. And he examined the brain of those monkeys to find that there are outstanding patterns emerging in the monkeys' brains. But the patterns were not the same, but dominant monkey has a dominant pattern, and the subject monkeys was different, had a different pattern. And he suggests that they are going to have some kind of order, social order, interacting with each other. And so, in a sense, he detected the neural patterns corresponding to the emergence of social order. And I think Onga's theory is closely related to his finding. In a sense, interaction makes some patterns, I think, indicative. Neural patterns, social interaction makes some neural patterns replicative, and that is very suggestive of some order in our society.
So in that case, what is an artifact?
Yeah. So
I would say signals. I mean, animal language is also based on signals. Body language. There are certain movements, certain expressions, and so on. I mean, this is why I emphasize the notion of artifact is relatively broad, but I think it makes sense because, you have like the body language of the human. I mean, everybody would agree. You can even distance yourself from this. I mean, I can just watch my hand, and reflect on this. It is, in a sense, outside. In a sense, an artifact. Of course, I don't use it consciously because I'm not an actor. I mean, I did not go into the details here, but I would precisely what you observe. I mean, I use another framework here, also by another psychologist and brain scientist. I mean, one fundamental fact is in the evolution, the development, of the infant is this feedback mechanism. I mean, you have an output. The output feeds back, and confirms certain behavioral patterns.